Hello, Cosmic Family. It's good to be here with you. Welcome. I'm Charlie, the Ascension Catalyst, here to help you uplift, ascend, and find and live your purpose on planet Earth. And today I've got a special message for you, so stick around. So there's some powerful changes happening on planet Earth. There are shifts that have been predicted by the ancient masters, and yet there are shifts that are being induced by the sort of current masters. They are not our spiritual masters. They are not necessarily the wise masters, but they are individuals that have sort of taken on this role and are trying to move society in a direction that, let's just say, would not benefit most of us. I'm going to share with you a little story. Right now, I am in Tirana, Albania. I'm staying in this neighborhood called Bloku, all right? And up until the 90s, this neighborhood since World War II until the 90s, when the communists came in, it was exclusive, all right? It meant that nobody could live here, no regular citizens. It was just for the communist leaders, all right? And there were guards in all direction. It's like in the center of the city. They just took it over and they said, we live here. And it was interesting because it's interesting being here now, and they've built up so many apartment buildings here. And I'm just staying literally down the street from where the house, or rather the villa of the communist dictator used to be. Now, an interesting thing about Albania is that it was the ultimate Marxist-Leninist country in the world, for those who believe that those things were never sort of fully tested out. Well, it was tested out here. Let's just say that it was tested out, and after 50 years, it just had disastrous effects during this time and afterwards in the country that you still feel. Now, I'm going to share some more things with you, and then I'm going to get to how does this apply to you and I right here, right now, where we are, okay? And to your own ascension journey, all right? Okay, so an interesting thing about Albania is that basically Albania is the land is very fertile. Everything grows here. I mean, everything that sustains life. Life is amazing. You could be driving down the road and there'll be olive trees and pomegranate trees just growing, without being tended to and bearing fruit. All right, very fertile country. But what happened is once the communists took over, they took everybody's lands, this mostly agricultural land. They took all the farmers' lands and they said, we'll take this over now. You can work for us, but we control how food is distributed. And as this happened, basically the country started starving, not because they weren't producing enough, but because they were controlling the food source, because they knew that if you keep people hungry and you can keep them a little disoriented and you can keep them, wanting to depend on the government, right? And this was really interesting because in the 90s, when people overthrew the communist regime, they held these court sessions. The dictator was dead by this time, but his wife and children and his cronies were still around. And so they learned that during the time when people would wait in line for just a bottle of milk and some old meat, his wife and daughters would be flown out on a private jet to Paris anytime they wanted to get their hair done. And that's what they did, all right? And so it's very interesting, also because Albanians couldn't travel anywhere, not even to their neighbors in Macedonia or Greece. If you tried, first of all, there were no flights back and forth, but if you tried to cross the border, you'd get shot, arrested, etc., and thrown to jail and considered a dissident. All right, so why do I share this with you? It's interesting because a few months ago when people were being asked to wear masks and quarantine and not go to restaurants, you saw the governor of California just having a good old dinner with his friends in a restaurant, and you see people flying out in jets, in the government that don't wear any masks, right? And there was recently a jet fuel tax that was passed, but guess what? It only affects commercial flights. It does not affect private flights, all right, or people that just take joyrides on private jets. And guess what? Who that affects? It affects the rest of us, right? So this is just one of the few examples of the hypocrisy that's happening in the world around us. And the reason I mention this, and why does this matter to your ascension process and your spiritual process to start with? Even though our spiritual process is very much a personal journey, all right, it is there not just to awaken us from within, but to also awaken us to the world without, and to awaken us to freedom, to real freedom. All right. And another interesting fact about Albania is that they outed religious freedom. You could not practice anything, right? Communism was basically the religion of the country. And so it's interesting because right now, many people do not realize the subtle, at times, as you are aware, as I'm aware, it's not so subtle conditioning, mental conditioning that is happening, all right? And it's really, really important to address this, because there's no way you're going to go through an ascension process or a true awakening, not this woke BS, but the true awakening, without realizing the conditioning. And this conditioning is happening in the news. It's happening by the propagation of certain ideologies that aim to split people. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, I know that you probably have, so much of this dividing that's happening in the culture, all right, that's being pushed, dividing man from women, people of different cultures and races, dividing people from different countries, dividing, the Jap people and the non-Jap people. There's so much of it. And the way that it's done is not so obvious, so people don't feel that they are being divided, because there's this sort of twisted reasoning, and it's twisted reason because there's really no reasoning in it. What they are using is emotions. They are sort of poking at people's emotions. And what happens is, when you truly begin to awaken, when you unplug from the matrix, you realize how reactive you've been this whole time. Not just to the environment around you and the people around you and the news around you, but even within, to past trauma. And when you begin to really heal that trauma, you realize, aha, I've been so reactive and I've been so conditioned to believe things that are not the truth. And this saying of, truth is a hard pill to swallow, there's a lot of truth in that little truth, because for most people, when they learn these things, they're overwhelmed and they say, I can't deal with it, and they actually sometimes use spiritual concepts as a way to sort of escape the reality they have a hard time facing. But when you really see the truth and what is happening and the illusions that are being played around us to keep us divided, to keep us in a reactive state, you can sort of snap yourself out of that trance. Now, it's not so easy to snap yourself out of that trance. And a lot of people are just complying, all right? They're complying and they're saying, if I just do this, if I just do that, all is going to be okay. All is going to be okay. And guess what? If you just keep doing that, and you just keep complying with that, and you just keep complying with that, without really connecting to that inner intuition, it's not going to make things okay, all right? All it's going to do is put those who keep doing that to a deeper and deeper sleep. And unless you really see what is going on, then you can actually have a true awakening. And where to go from here? Well, it's obvious that there is a movement to shrink our freedoms that we've been experiencing. For a short period of time, there was a period of time in culture in the last, since World War II, that we started actually touching on some real freedom of being and expression and spiritual religious freedom. But that window is starting to close again, all right? And there will be places around planet Earth that will be free and open. but there's a lot of resistance right now. So it's really, really important to stay clear and to stay grounded, because a lot of people, they're using this thing of safety over freedom that's sort of catching a lot of people in the net. And they think, if I just comply, if I follow some simple rules, but these simple rules, they keep being added and added more and more on there. And you're noticing people turning against one another. We've seen this sort of behavior before. All we've got to look is not that far from now. When I connect with our broader cosmic family and they look at, humans and how long we've lived, it's just a speck in the greater picture. It's just a little speck in the greater picture of the cosmos. And so when people sort of comply and act very, just give up their freedoms and give up their true sense of intuition and beingness on this planet that allows them to make a choice and not feel that they are being bullied into a choice. When you are into that space, you realize, and when you unplug from that space of being bullied into different choices because that's what everybody else is doing, you sort of realize, wow, I've got so much more power. So how can I leverage this power, right? And that's something that I've learned by being born into a communist country and surviving civil war and seeing what happens when people say, you know what, no more. And shit does hit the fan, all right? I've been there. I know what it was like waking up to gunshots and my parents saying, there's no food, everything is shut down, there's no cops, there's nothing, and we need to find a sack of flour, at least we can make some bread, and there's no electricity and nothing, okay? And those things happen, and I'm not saying that's where we're headed, but we are headed in a very, we are headed in a direction where energetically there is a big awakening happening, but at the same time, there are forces that realizing, there's no way we want this to happen. We want to make sure that we have a compliant, massive class of people, all right? And a lot of people are falling for it, okay? And I want you to be one of those who's awake and aware and noticing what is happening, okay? I started receiving a lot of these messages in 2019, and I started living nomadically so I could have the freedom to move around and not be tied down to one place. And I'm still living nomadically. Even during, COVID, I was able to travel to different places and sort of really get a real pulse of what is happening in the world, not just what the news is telling me, all right? And to really investigate and to really notice the true human nature and how it's so easy for the ones that have sort of figured out how to manipulate it to take advantage of that human nature, but then to also see the resilience, all right, and how to tap into that resilience, okay? And today, the last message I want to leave you with, that it's important to tap into this resilience by tapping into your tribe, all right? Because as you notice, this quarantining is just the beginning of splitting people up, of isolating people. We are social creatures. We need one another, all right? They have done, so many studies to show that, wow, when people actually, even if they don't have real IRL connections but connect with people online or even movie characters, they feel like their social life is richer. Not only do they feel happier, but they feel more vibrant. Now, another tactic that is being used is, the whole thing of celebrities, to sort of put celebrities where we're at, but they're at a completely different level. So it's important to find your true tribe, to unplug from, I get it, you got to watch your favorite shows or whatnot, but it's important to unplug from these fictional characters and this idea of the celebrities, because they're not at the level where we're at, and they're not really working for us, most of them, right? They're sort of being utilized by the elites to kind of steer us in whatever direction because of our nature and the way that we are. We will, even if it's not real, we will genuinely feel like, wow, I have a genuine connection with this character or with this movie star, right? So I want you to start actually finding your real tribe, IRL people, all right? And with that said, I am creating a small, intimate, but a very focused group of people where we get together every month to talk about all this uncensored. Right now, I'm hosting it on Patreon, but I want to move it to my own private website. So I'm going to leave a link below. It's at Charlie Wild 7. make sure you join. This is where we talk about this and many other things, and we actually get face to face with one another. Because as you know, talking about certain things is just not so cool right now, because again, there's a big shift happening, and you want to know which part are you in. Are you part of the shift of the people that are just going into bigger, deeper snooze, all right? Or are you part of the ones who are truly awakening and connecting with your real tribe, not fictional characters designed to keep you in a trance, all right? So thank you, and I will be back with another, or I'll be back in the future with new messages. Meanwhile, make sure you watch more and more videos we have here. Check out that link so we can connect more directly. And I look forward, all right, I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Blessings.